Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see my face and hear my voice, then you are definitely aware I am not Megan Pennington. Megan is not with us this evening. She is performing at the Mr. Roboto project with Lucky Us, with her band Moonshine Jasmine and MSJR as we speak. But we do have a great show for you this evening. I'm going to be flying solo, going mano a mano with Mr. Benjamin Getkin. Ben is a multi-talented musician, a professional IT person, and a former English teacher at GNet Public Schools in Gimhae, South Korea. You may have heard him shredding solos with the Jessica Bella Band all over town, but he is also a fine singer and songwriter in his own right. Tonight, we're very happy to welcome polymath extraordinaire, Mr. Ben Getkin, to the Firepitt. How's it going, Ben?
Oh, hey, Jim. Thanks very much. Great to be here. Appreciate the intro.
Hey, we're really glad to have you here. And I know you've recently released a wonderful studio single that we're going to hear a little bit later on in the program. I think our listeners would like to get to know a little bit more about you. Now, I've heard you with the Jessica Bella Band, and I've heard you as a solo artist up at Antonio's Open Mic and also performing all over town. How did you get into music in the first place, Ben?
Well, let's see. I guess my folks are both, musical. My mom played a lot of piano when I was a kid, and my dad played guitar. And I seem to recall I went to Penn Hebron Elementary School in Penn Hills here in Pittsburgh, and for my first 5 years of elementary school, and I seem to remember bopping around the halls, doing my best Elvis impersonation. So I was a little late on that trend because it was about 1990 something or other back then, but I think that was, I first started singing, I'd be the kid that was like, spending too long with the bathroom hall pass, and they'd come down and find me like testing out the echoes. They're like, like that whole thing. And I think that was my first sort of intro to it. And then when I was a kid, we used to, go away in the summers, camping trips, and would sing around the campfire a little bit. And I started playing guitar maybe about 13, something like that, and just kind of took off from there, I guess.
Did you start writing songs immediately, or did you start out as a cover artist?
I think I started sort of plunking away, and I think as soon as I got my hands on like a tape recorder, and I could kind of record the stuff that I was playing. I think I actually, in this cabinet behind here, I still have a few old tape decks that would absolutely be mortifying to put back in the reels to listen to. But yeah, I started, putting little riffs down, and I think the first song I remember trying to record was McCartney's Band on the Run on a little cassette player, Play School cassette player, something like that. So,
and your brother Dan's also a musician. Did you guys grow up playing guitars together? And do you ever get together with him and play now?
I am a proud former member of what is now Dan Getkin and the 12-6. So I was in that group for a season before I spent a lot of years in South Korea there. So I think, I did a year in Korea, and then I came back and I was in the band for some of that time. And then I went back to Korea. But when we were younger, teenagers, just sort of roaming around town with the guitars. I remember one particular trip we went, there was that great Simon and Garfunkel reunion around 2002, 2003. And we both went to Atlantic City to see them, because I don't think, at least when it was first announced, that tour, they had a Pittsburgh stop. So it was us, and it was about 45 degenerate gamblers that got on the Greyhound from Pittsburgh and took it to Atlantic City. And you could just sort of see these folks kind of like giving us the eye like the whole trip. And I remember there was this one moment when we were about to get off the bus and we had the guitar cases and we both had kind of like the long like mop topish hair. And this guy turns around, he's like, "Who are you supposed to be, Herman's Hermits?" So yeah, that was one of those times. So yeah, I guess the short answer is yes.
And I'm also really intrigued about your experiences in Korea. Do you feel like your sojourns in Korea influenced you musically or culturally in some way?
Yeah, Korea is definitely. I mean, as I think everyone has been more and more aware of the last few years, just a great cultural hub for many things, but music certainly among them. One thing I really noticed too is that when I was over there, that karaoke, which is the Japanese term, over in Korea they call them norebangs, singing rooms. Though they're huge, they're everywhere. They're so integrated into like all kinds of like work functions. I remember working at a bunch of different or a few different schools, and a lot of the work meetings would be kind of partly built around a trip to the singing room. And but even just beyond that, I mean, yeah, there was just tons of music, people singing all the time, just K-pop, blasting from every speaker, and just amazing, what they're doing over there, for my money. Yeah, it rivals all the great music centers, and certainly, like I said, we're seeing more and more of that today as K-pop is kind of really broken internationally. So it's been cool to track that for sure.
It sure has. And can we expect to hear a little K-pop influence in any of the songs we're going to hear tonight? Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the first one that's up on our turntable? You said you'd be there.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a little background? What was happening when you wrote that song? Where did it come from?
Yeah. Well, that one I wrote in Korea. So I'm currently working on releasing a series of singles, which I'm going to sort of jam into an album at the end. And all of them were kind of written my first year in Korea. And so that particular song, I couldn't say that it necessarily has a K-pop influence, I suppose. But the other thing was, when I was over there, I guess I always have this tendency of like sort of looking backwards. I was a history major in school, and when I was in Korea, actually, I got really interested in some of the music there from the 70s and 80s. I'm trying to think, like a Kim Se-hwan, for example. I'm going to blank on a few names here, but there's a lot of great sort of folk rock that parallels in many ways what was going on in the States, in the 60s and 70s. That while it's probably not sort of as big as some of the artists today that are coming out of Korea, still great, really great stuff. Anyway, this particular song, you said you'd be there, was written. I was on a school vacation. I think it was a summer vacation, and I was working in this really small farming town about an hour north of Seoul. So there wasn't a whole lot to do there in the summer vacation, and I was just sort of one of those nights where I was sometimes I would leave my little apartment and I would wander sort of around the town. You could do a kind of a loop because it was really just sort of this one main street, and then it was surrounded by different crops in the fields. And so I would just kind of go in one direction as far as the sidewalk would go on the pavement, and then when I got to the end of that, I'd cross the street and go all the way back the other way. And I ran into the first line of the song is a spider's web is strung across a lonely sidewalk while I'm walking along. I hit the web, I cough and sputter, and I curse out loud, but I can't be caught. And that's when I sort of ran into this spider web, because there's really no one else out there at 1 a.m. wandering around this town except for me. And I ran into the spider web and I don't know why that sort of started me thinking about this, but suddenly I was like, the spider's web, and it all just kind of spilled out from there. So, and I don't know, it was, I'm not sure, that sort of trip to Korea that first year, I had just previously, the year before, spent a year in New York City, and it was a little turbulent year. So I was just kind of reflecting on some things. I was working out a few things that went sideways in New York that year. So, yeah, you said you'd be there.
Well, I think it's a great tune. To me, it kind of has a Rick Springfield kind of vibe to it. Really nice pop feel. I really like the keyboard and really hooky guitar lines and guitar solos, which I think is kind of your trademark. And also, could you tell us where this song was recorded and who all plays on it, that kind of thing, before we hear it?
Absolutely, yeah. So the keyboard lines that you mentioned are a great New York-based keyboard player named Dan Ricker. So I mean, he's really a wizard on the keys there. And the recording sessions themselves for this, You Said You'd Be There track, and the one we'll hear at the end are both from a session that I did with my high school best friend, CJ Young, and we're still friends, of many years. He's based out of New York now. So, he sort of knew a few people, and I was sort of asking him, oh, do you know, could we maybe put together a group? And I got a couple songs, and so he's on drums, and then let me see here. I got to make sure I got all the names right here, but sorry, we put this group together. It was sort of a last minute kind of thing. Let's see. Sorry, folks. So some other personnel here. We got the great Nick Cabrera on lead guitar there. The bass player, I was trying to remember, was Valerio Celentano. These guys are all like top flight New York session live players. So they're definitely worth checking out for sure on the various socials there. So, but yeah, I was thrilled with the way things turned out.
Well, I think it's time for us to check out for sure. You Said You'd Be There, brand new single by Mr. Ben Getkin.
The spider's web is strung across a lonely sidewalk when I'm passing along. I hit the web, I cough and sputter and I curse out loud, but I can't be caught. I guess I'm lucky that I'm not a moth, but I just get to keep fluttering on. I go toward any light, can't find my bed. You could save me, but I just don't want it. A midnight trap, it police cruiser with the fang like bumpers and a cage in the back. I'm in his sights, I'm driving, I don't see him when I hit that light. Thank God it don't spot. I guess I'm lucky that I don't have to stop, but it just lets the trail of screw-ups go on. One day my head's too slow, I'm spinning overthrown, head first through the glass on the road. Oh, you said you'd be there, but you know that you're already not. No, you're not. It feels so right, but you know that it's already wrong. toss out the blame. Oh, you said you'd be there, but you know that you're already not. No, you're not. Oh, it feels so right, but you know that it's already wrong. Very wrong. Oh, you said you'd be there, but you know that you're already not. No, you're not. Oh, it feels so right, but you know that it's already wrong. Really wrong. Oh, oh,
All right. So that was, you said you'd be there, the first single from a new collection of works by Mr. Benjamin Getkin. Ben, we're so glad you're in the studio with us tonight. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about your influences? You mentioned Simon and Garfunkel. Who did you listen to growing up, and who are you listening to these days?
Totally. I should make one correction just as we roll into this next segment here. I believe Valerio, the bass player from the track we just played, professionally, if you're looking him up just to hear some of his other stuff, he goes by Valerio Fluido. But as far as influences go, I have to say probably the first big influence I had was the Beatles. My mom, in particular, has been a huge Beatles fan over the years, so that's a influence. I remember, she had her records, from the 60s around, and when my brother and I were sort of old enough to work the record player, we'd be digging through the old Capitol releases. And Crosby, Stills. I think for my dad, I sort of associate him more with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So sort of the American, in some ways, response to the Beatles. That California folk rock sound there from sort of late 60s, early 70s. And then as I got a bit sort of into my teen years, I remember a lot of, I probably anybody who went to high school with me will think of, maybe if they remember anything at all about me, it would be probably me pretending to be Dave Matthews for, I think, the last 2 years of school with my pajama bottoms and my slippers that I walked around school with. So I for a while, I was pretty intent on getting every Dave Matthews lick down and sort of get the vocal, sort of his particular vocal timbre just right. I don't know if I ever quite got there, but it was definitely something to chase. And then going in sort of into college, I'd say I got really into Simon and Garfunkel on Paul Simon's solo stuff. I've always been a huge fan of his. Definitely took a foray into the jam bands with the Grateful Dead, and I just actually went to see Fish for the numberth time in Madison Square Garden with a great college friend just over the Christmas holiday there, and just a ton of stuff. Just listening jazz. I remember listening to the great Pittsburgh radio station WDUQ back when it was still on the air.
How about Tony Moad and the soulful sounds of the city?
Absolutely.
You remember him? Yeah, he's a Brookline resident. I don't know if he's still with us. I hope he is. But I actually did some brickwork for him a few years ago and got the official Pittsburgh Jazz Association T-shirt. He gave me a wine glass and some other things. Great voice, really wonderful guy for sure.
Absolutely. Classic Pittsburgh figure. I think Tony, unfortunately, he passed a few years ago. Let me just fact check that real quick. But I remember being CJ Young, the guy that plays drums and my great sort of almost lifelong friend at this point, who was on the last track we played. We both went down to DUQ the night that it was going off the air and found a way. I think we tried to pretend to like deliver a pizza, and they were like, all right, just come in. You don't have to, like, there's no subterfuge necessary. And so we were sort of hanging out in the control room, and I remember trying to be like, oh, Tony, man, we really appreciate everything. And, he's like, who are you? but he was really great. After that, he was messing around. But so, yeah, I mean, just a lot of great memories, just a great Pittsburgh jazz figure. And he unfortunately passed just at the beginning of 2021 from what I'm seeing. So, but
may he rest in peace. How about telling us a little bit about the next track that we're going to listen to? The First Conviction. I wonder, is this based on personal experience, perhaps, Ben?
This is it's based around, I remember in high school / maybe first year of college, there was a house party around here where I live in the South Hills, and maybe 2 years ago.
Mount Lebanon, to be exact. Isn't that correct?
Perhaps. And we'll have to look at the borders. But yeah, so there happened to be a couple of parties that went on, and I seem to recall a few. Gosh, I'm trying to think what I should say about this. It was your typical college hijinks. The kids get together at a house. There's a noise complaint. The cops roll up. That kind of thing. And, oh no, that sort of thing. Nothing too egregious.
I think we've all been there, and it has really infectious hooky lines, and these are all like kind of signature Ben Getkin tunes that we're listening to tonight. Really infectious vocals, clever lyrics, excellent hooks, and this song is no exception. Let's give a listen to The First Conviction by Mr. Ben Getkin. So here we go.
You got to make a decision, wind up in time to go around one more time.
That was The First Conviction by Ben Getkin. I think we're all convicted that Ben is a phenomenal singer-songwriter, wonderful performer, and I'm so glad we've had him on the show this evening to showcase his music. Ben, why don't you give a shout out to anyone you would like to this evening and tell us about any upcoming gigs or recordings that we can expect to hear?
Absolutely. Well, I guess the last couple of years I've been playing guitar for a band called the Jessica Bella Band. And so if you're not familiar with that group, I definitely recommend checking out. Jess is a fantastic singer, songwriter, and performer. If you've ever seen her live, you know the energy that she brings. And if there's a track that I would recommend checking out, maybe one of my favorites is Expectation. That might be a good one to start with if you haven't been through her catalog. In addition, I would recommend my great friend CJ Young's group, New York-based Certain Death, fronted among others. I think they have sort of a couple guitar players, but the maybe main songwriter, I'm going to guess, is a guy called Henry Black. So that's a great New York-based rock and roll, sort of think kind of like 70s sort of 70s guitar rock. I'm gonna butcher this genre description, but fantastic songwriting. They just released one, I think, as a single, and I think it's called To the Sea. So if you're I definitely recommend checking out Certain Death. They just put out an album as well. Among others, let's see, maybe just to do something a little bit different. I've really enjoyed the last few years around the Pittsburgh music scene at the Starlight Invitational and the open mic. A great classical influenced classical guitar player, Damon Buxton. So I would definitely recommend checking him out. He tours around a fair bit around the area, and I had the great fortune at the Pittsburgh Art All Night event this year to in some ways, great fortune to follow him, because he just listening to his music before I went on for my set would just put me in such a great frame of mind. He does sort of these sort of complex, really melodic and interesting sort of chord variations. I mean, it's a little hard to explain. I'm not a classical guitar player myself, but really affecting and music, and just put me in a great frame of mind. But difficult to follow from a musical perspective, certainly. And as far as let's see, also just a couple other things locally, maybe Orange G. I was at a Starlight Invitational recently, and I saw him with his group, and they just knocked my socks off. Great quartet there of sort of pop rock. As far as things coming up, I am going to be playing the Starlight Invitational. I keep talking about that on July 12th. And we're going to, I think John Porbill is running that one that night, and we'll have some more info about that. So July 12th at the Starlight there in Blawnox. And then just down the road, I'm also going to be at Moondogs here June 20th. That's Scott Henry Harris. I think it's going to be the debut of his group that he's been, his sort of, you might call it a super group that he's putting together. I think that they'll be doing their first show that night, and I'll be just doing a quick opening set before that. So those are both, I believe, evening gigs. They're going to start about 7 o'clock. So again, Starlight on July 12th, I think from 7 to 9, and then Moondogs on June 20th, and I think that's going to start about 7 with Scott headlining there. So yeah,
that's fantastic. And I got to say, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show with us this evening. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this last track that we're going to listen to before we disappear? There is no way to disappear. And we are kind of running out of time, so give us a quick intro.
Sure. This is a song I mentioned about how all these songs were written in Korea, and I was kind of heading there from about a kind of a turbulent year in New York. So this is sort of a track that I guess sort of is influenced a bit by my frame of mind as I was leaving New York and headed into a kind of an unknown. Never been to Korea at that point. Didn't know anyone there. Had never been outside the continental, or I'd never been outside of North America. So kind of all those feelings of that sort of new adventure. Yeah, there is no way to disappear.
Just after dawn at the airport lounge, paying too much for drinks, gonna have another round. Fly halfway around the world tonight, try to get away from here, but I'm not sure, am I gonna succeed? There is no way to disappear here, no matter how you go, you're gonna leave someone in tears. There is no way to disappear, alright, where'd you go? You try as hard as you like, you're never leaving here. Life is a traffic jam, no one can pass. You try to get to the exit you want, but you run out of gas. Wonder why did I ever hit the road? But I'm not sure, am I ever gonna know? There is no way to disappear here, no matter how you go, you're gonna leave someone in tears. There is no way to disappear, alright, where'd you go? You try as hard as you like, you're never leaving here. You're getting tired and you don't want to know that things change form, but there's nowhere for them to go. Be here right now, that's about all you can do. Well, you thought of it, though you could not make it come true. Can't help but think, if you have a child, they're gonna fix things if the future's so bright. Stand back, baby, that's what they said about you, and I'm not sure, has it ever been